how to manage their finances, especially at a time like this, wherein we are facing a pandemic. A lot of our finance or our financial life has changed, and we really need information in order to be able to go through these storms caused by COVID-19. And also just in general, being upskilled on your finances is the first thing that we should have been uh, um, that should have been done when we were employed. I do always tell employers that during induction, please do call us so that we can capacitate your employees. Because sometimes once you start making wrong financial moves, it takes some time to get back on track. But I believe that this program will change someone's financial behavior. And if we do go and practice what we will learn today, I do believe that a lot is going to change um, when it comes to our finances. Now, the aim here is to get you to take control of your money so that you can live your best life. I often say that the solution to a financial problem is not money if you don't know how to manage money. Now, the solution is not money. You could be given a lot of money currently, because a lot of us think that if I could just get more money, then my current financial problems could be solved. But it's not the case, and maybe um, I can give you just one example that will show you that it is not the case. On Mzansi Magic, if you do watch television often, there's a show that is called I Blew It, um, wherein people are giving out various stories of how they blew money, of which they got maybe from a road accident fund, lotto, wherever they got it from. Now, that is one side that should show us that money is not the solution. If our people are not told of or taught how to manage their finances, no matter how much money they get, we'll just end up blowing it, and we'll just be left with a history that I once had money, but I blew it. So the same applies to employees. Even if they give you an increase, even if you get a promotion at work, but if you don't know how to manage your finances, the more salary you get or the more money you get, the more mistakes you make. So the aim here is to let you take control of your money in order to live your best life. And the road to this best life, as you can see, is the first thing is to understand what influences your money decision. Because a lot of times there are different factors which influences our money decisions. It could be friends, it could be our family. A lot of things influences our money decision, and that's the first thing that we will be looking at. And the second thing on this road to your best life is the management of your finances. And again, we set actionable financial goals, because we can't just be waking up every morning going to work without having a specific goal of what we want to achieve in life. And the fourth factor that we'll be looking at is taking control of your debt, because debt is one of the most the most important thing, which if we don't take control of, then it becomes a problem in our financial life. So we need to be able to take control of your debt, and also not that the debt controls us, but we control it in a way that we won't have headaches. And the last one will be protecting yourself and your family. So these are 5 principles. So basically, we're going to show you 5 secrets of money management that will let you live your best life. And these 5 principles are based on the big 5 animals, of which I believe everyone knows the big 5 animals. And it was a good combination before when these 5 animals were printed on the money. Hence, the topic is called On the Money. But then again, even though they've removed the big 5 animals from the money, the same principle still applies. So the first one will be we'll be learning on how to be fearless like the lion and taking control of our money. And the second one being paying attention like the elephant. You need to know how much is coming into your bank account. You need to be able to track your expenses and make an informed decision. And also we'll look at charging down your debt like a rhino, so that you don't let debt run your life, but you run, you control debt and it doesn't control you. And the fourth aspect will be focusing on your goals, like the leopard stalks its prey. And the last one will be how to protect and grow your head's family, or how to create more wealth. So these are the 5 aspects that we'll be looking at. Um, the first one of being fearless, we'll have to look at what influences your decisions about money. And although maybe we won't have that opportunity to interact, but while you're sitting there, you can just ask yourself this: does family influence your money decisions? Does advertising? What happens to your mind when you go to a shop and you find a shoe which was costing 400 rand is now 200? Um, is it personal circumstances which are influencing your money? Is it social media? Um, do famous people influence how you spend money? Do you always want to buy that Gucci bag that you saw from that famous celebrity? Is it dreams and goals that are influencing your money? Is it your friends? Are you maybe on a peer competition with your colleagues or your friends? So once you have um, the answer on what influences your money, then you have a better way of going to the next step. Because let's say, for example, it is advertising, then you will have to learn, because when it comes to advertising, for example, we'll talk more about consumer psychology, how these businesses confuse our minds whenever we see a sale at the shop written in big capital and bold letters. Then we start to think, okay, then I should spend my money. So understanding what influences our thoughts, our emotions, and decisions on our money is the first thing. And I believe that for those who are taking notes already, everyone has an answer on what influences their money. Now, um, some of the questions may be, how do you feel about money now? Your own money. How do you feel about it now? Do you talk about money with your partner, with your spouse, or with your children? Do you pay a black or family tax? When we talk about a black tax, you would know that we'll be talking about, let's say, for example, I am the first one or the only one who is working at home, and I have siblings who are looking up to me. And I still have to sort of give them financial support each and every month. So you can ask yourself this: is there anyone that you are supporting, and do you talk about money with your partner? Because this is the most important thing. You will hear more about this when you talk about the different types of marriages. Sometimes we get married without knowing each other's financial circumstance, and that causes a lot of problems. I mean, if we're going to get married in community of property, and I'm coming with a 500,000 debt, of which my partner is unaware of, then when she realizes that she is also involved in this debt, then it becomes a problem. And also, how we handle finances and what we teach our children about our finances will also affect how they will use their finances in future. So in 2018, before COVID, we did a survey um, throughout South Africa, and we were asking them some financial questions. We do this every year during the annual savings month, which is June. We ask just to get a glimpse of what is happening financially, what is the current financial status in South Africa. And in 2018, we found that 59% of South Africans have an expectation that they will have to support their family. So 59% of people have an expectation on that they will have to support their family. And whenever we talk about money with our family members, it's an emotional topic. So the first thing that we will have to do is to stay calm, because in some instances we would start talking about money and everyone will just get emotional, and at the end of the day, instead of solving what is currently the problem, we just end up fighting. um, and sometimes instead of finding the common solution or the common goal, we just assign blame to the other person, and whilst ignoring the real problem. And listening attentively is one of the solution that we could do whenever we talk about money with our family. Giving others a chance to talk. Um, and you can start small, maybe with your partner, and instead of the whole household. Um, and I like this one. You should always regularly, maybe every month, have an imbis or yemali with your family. Talk about your finances, maybe on a monthly basis, with your family. Now, the other influence of money is advertising and social media. Um, in most cases, they call this consumer psychology. You on Take a Lot or any other store online, and you find they're selling an Apple iPhone 12 mini, which is trending currently. As you can see on the screen, it was 17,499, but now it's 16,799. And in red color, they're saying that there's only 9 left. So this could be an influence of your spending behavior. I mean, when you realize that, oh, there's only 9 left, then you rush to buy that iPhone, because you feel like if you don't do it quickly, you will have lost, or you're losing out. And in most cases, there's not really 9 iPhones which are left. There's a lot which are left, and they can still order as many as possible. But this is just to buy your mind. This is just to psychologically direct you into buying the cell phone. And in most cases, if you don't have a budget for it, you'll find yourself buying a cell phone of which you don't have a budget for, because advertising and social media influences your money decision. And most companies currently would use celebrities. A celebrity will just post a picture on Instagram and tag all the brands. Let's say maybe she's wearing whatever label, then she will just tag them. And because that person influences, or you look up to that person, or she's your famous or he's your famous celebrity, then that can also easily influence you into buying whatever that will be advertised on that social media. And maybe, which is not a bad thing, maybe we should get that it's not really a bad thing, but does it influence your money? Because you could find that this is where your problem is, or your financial problem is. Um, as you can see here, we have more examples of advertising and social media. Now, a lot of people, we know that when we want to buy something, we often check the ratings and the comments. And when we find that a lot of people are saying this is a good product, then that gets us into buying, or that buys us in to buy whatever that product is. Um, so I'm gonna post this link after the session, so you can just go into it and do a money quiz. Then that will give you your money personality. What kind of personality do you have when it comes to finances? Because we have different money personalities. We have a dreamer, we have a spender, we have an investor, um, and we also have a saver. So if you do the quiz and you find that you have a spender personality, so a spender likes nice things, fancy cars, expensive houses, and brand clothing. They will sometimes go into debt to keep up the lifestyle. And spenders are always trying to keep up with the with the kunenes. So if you are this personality type, then I would advise that you don't take on too much debt. Don't buy unnecessary stuff. Shop around for better prices and start saving now, because in most cases, a spender does not save money. When you talk about saving to a spender, it's a story. So you need to be able to start with the little things, like not taking too much debt, because a spender, you'll find them spending. They say we buy things we don't want to impress people we don't like with money we don't have. So when you buy with money you don't have, it means that you are buying with credit. You go to any store that sells food and clothes, maybe Woolies, and you find yourself buying with credit, of which you won't be able to pay up sometimes, because taking debt is very easy, but keeping up the payments is the problem. So I would advise that if you have a spender personality, then you start saving now. Then we also have savers. Now, savers try to save every cent of money they get. They typically hate spending money and will look for the cheapest deals. They tend to be risk averse. Now, um, the only advice I can give to spenders is don't put all your savings in low return investments like a money account instead of investing it. Now, if you have this personality, most people with this personality hate spending money and they will look for the cheapest deals. But I would advise that you put more effort into investing money and not put more money into low return investments like the money market account. You could maybe look at buying shares. You could maybe look at investing in property. Um, you could also look at starting a business. um, Put more adventure into your saver personality or your saving personality. Because when we talk about maybe buying a property, this is the very best time to buy property because the repo rate has been reduced. So if you're buying a property through a home loan, you'll find that the interest rates are quite low as compared to before COVID. And maybe if you want to buy shares, this is the best time to buy shares as well. I was just reading last week on the news that people who bought shares from SEB, if you bought them at 100 Rand in 2010, they are worth 77,000. 100 Rand of shares in 2010 is now worth 77,000. So if you are a saver, you could maybe explore buying shares. And it's also the best time to buy shares because most company share price is low due to COVID-19. So when COVID-19 passes, then you'll find that you're getting more money, more value out of the money that you use to buy shares. Then you also have investors. Now, investors take risks on investments, hoping for a big payoff. Now, this personality type is an entrepreneurial in nature, but it also has a higher risk appetite. Now, people who have this investor personality are mostly business people. So if you have this personality type, you need to understand the financial impact of the risks that you take. Because sometimes investors will just put more money into an investment without understanding the impact of the risks that they're taking. Um, you don't need to put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify your investments. I mean, if you've invested in property, try to find something or try to find a different investment and have different portfolios. It's always good so that if it doesn't work on one hand, then hopefully it will be working on the other investments that you've diversified into. And we also have dreamers. Now, dreamers are idealistic, they are thoughtful, and they're compassionate. They tend to use their money for defining and developing who they are. Now, this personality tends to focus on dreams and might not always pay enough attention to money. So if you have this personality, which is a bit rare, I must say, you need to automate your savings, your payments, and your investments. So dreamers would often save manually. But if you automate your savings and your investments, maybe through a stop order or a debit order, and you keep a close watch over how much you spend. So in general, these are the basic money personality that influences our financial decisions. Like I said, I'm gonna paste that link which takes us to 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 our money personality answer, and then maybe you can just check who you are. Are you a spender? Are you a saver? Are you an investor? Or you are a dreamer? Now, when it comes to managing your money, you need to understand or to pay attention, like the elephant. We all know that an elephant is famous for not forgetting and paying attention. So you need to know your income, you need to track your expenses, and you need to make an informed decisions. In most cases, when you talk about knowing our income, you need to know how much you earn, how much you spend, and how much you owe. Because in most cases, we only look at what our net salary is, but we don't really look at how much is being deducted maybe from our pay slip, and which is very much important information. I mean, if it was not through knowledge sharing, a lot of people would not have known that there is an unemployment insurance fund. And if I had the opportunity to ask some of the colleagues, they would not know how much exactly they are contributing towards UIF. So we need to know every cent that comes in and that goes out is very much important. If you will remember, in recent years, there was a problem of debit order fraud, wherein people were being debited less than 100 Rand from their account. And sometimes it will take time to know that there's a debit order going off from my account because, firstly, in most cases, you'll find that 99 Rand will not send a notice on my phone, and I will only take a bank statement when it's needed. So it's very much important to track what is happening with your money. And the first step is to know how much is coming in. Figure out what money is going out and categorize your expenses and adjust your budget. And lastly, you should be able to monitor your budget. And when we talk about having a budget, we often hear stories, we often hear myths about having a budget. Some people would say, I don't have time to budget. I remember I was doing I was having a session with SAPS in Polokwane. And the manager there was saying, look, what you are saying is true. We often don't have a budget. You'll find that on payday, someone is buying KFC in the morning, they're buying Nando's in the afternoon, When they knock off, they're buying again. And in a day, you find yourself spending over 300 that you didn't have time to budget for. And then a day after your payday, you find that you are broke. But there are certain things which you spend money on, but because you don't have a budget, then you won't see where your money is going. So many people would say, I don't have time to budget. And you should start with small steps. Write down everything you spend your money on today. The legal things such as airtime, the legal things such as KFC, all these legal things that we spend our money on. I'm not saying don't buy them, but have a budget for them. I'll give you an example. If you don't have a budget for lunch at work, and let's say maybe you spend 50 Rand per day, that 50 Rand is 250 per month. It's 1,000 per, it's 250 per week, sorry. It's 1,000 per month, and it's 12,000 per year that you will have spent only on lunch. So if you go back to your budget, you will realize that if I'm spending over 1,000 per month on lunch only, maybe I should just take a lunch box to work and save this 1,000. So you should always begin with small steps. Some would say I'm not good at math, but the math for budgeting is very easy. And there are so many apps nowadays that you can use that does the math for you instead of you calculating. I mean, if you just go online and check for apps such as 22/7. Now, this 22/7, I have it and I use it. It's very much useful. It's very, very much useful. It will show you how much money you have left, how much you're owing throughout all your accounts, how much you should be saving. It will monitor everything and calculate everything for you. You can even adjust your budget on it. So we have the relevant technology nowadays to can make things easy for us. And also budgeting will force me, some would say budgeting will force me to sacrifice all the things I want. You don't want to give up that steer bag or those levi jeans. Well, there's no problem, but put it in your budget and plan for it. The same thing I was saying that, look, I'm not saying stop buying that bag. I'm not saying stop buying airtime, but the problem is when you don't have a budget for it. So budgeting will not sacrifice all the things you want. In fact, it will show you your priorities. Because in your budget, the first thing will be your needs, and the last things will be your want. Because in most cases, we find ourselves buying wants before needs. So a budget will help you to prioritize in that manner. And the other myth you will hear from people is that they don't have a regular income. So why should I budget? And I get this a lot, especially when I'm doing community trainings. You will hear people saying, so we don't have an income. So why are you teaching us about a budget? Well, let me tell you, as long as you spend money, you can budget and take control of your life. Because in most cases, it's not about the salary that we are getting because we are employed. No, the salary, just because you're getting money, just because you're spending money. Some will be spending money that they got from a grant. Some will be spending money that they got from their businesses. The very same money that we're spending is the money that we should budget for. Because if we don't budget for it, then we won't see where our money is going. Now, the first step of checking the money that comes in. According to the stats that we got from our old mutual saving and investment monitor, 19% of South Africans have taken a personal loan from a family member. And of these, 39% are struggling to repay the loan or have stopped paying. And you see, when you start taking loans from your family member, it also disrupts when it comes to keeping relationships, because for some, they're no longer speaking to their family members or their siblings because of this problem of borrowing. So when we talk about the first step of money in, well, it could be money from your salary, Maybe you have a family member who is supporting you. Maybe you have a side hustle. And this is an important aspect nowadays, to have a side hustle as long as it doesn't have any conflicts of interest with your employer. Maybe the money is coming in from the interest that you're earning on your investment, or the returns on investments that you have. All that is regarded as the money that is coming in and should be regarded in your budget. Now, when you talk about diversifying your income streams or having a side hustle, if you earn a salary, see whether you can start a side hustle. Because sometimes our expenses are more than what we are earning. But then it's not ideal to take a debt in order to add more. And we do this in a fashionable way, of which maybe we think maybe it's not a cost, it's not a debt anymore. It's fine, I can live like this. The issue of maybe taking your whole salary into a credit card and spending your credit card. Well, that's spending above what you earn. Or sometimes you have an overdraft on your account. That is still a debt. But if you have a side hustle, which will top up your salary in order to accommodate or all your expenses, I would regard it as a very good way of diversifying your income streams. And by doing this, you're investing some of the money that you are earning as a return. If there's one thing that the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us, is the importance of income diversification. About 49% of people show a negative impact on their income during a pandemic. You will know that some were experiencing a salary cut. Some, in fact, were retrenched. A lot of companies were retrenching during the lockdown. So that on its own showed us the importance of having different income streams in order to always have a backup in cases like the hard lockdown that we have. Now, once you start earning an income, the safest place to keep it is in a bank. And at the bank, we have different types of accounts. And although this may sound as basic knowledge, but I've realized that a lot of people, when they open bank accounts, they don't check which account has the lowest fees. And you'll find that from your account alone, and maybe what influences, if you are a spender or if you have a spender personality, you'll find that what influences the type of account you are using is that spender behavior. Everyone would want to have a black, not that gold account or a silver or black account for people with money. And out of that account alone, you'll find yourself paying around 300 or 400 per month, of which you could have just opened an account which will take maybe 20 Rand, which will charge you only 20 Rand or 30 Rand per month, and save that money somewhere else for important things. Or you can open an interest earning savings account for your emergency fund. There are accounts of which will, when you spend money, they're taking some of the money that you've spent, a percentage of what you've spent, into a savings account. Instead of making money for financial institutions, then we find a smart way of earning money while we are spending. Because in most cases, we're paying a lot of money for or on bank charges without really understanding. And sometimes maybe we being charged a lot of money because of where we are and how we are spending the type of account that we are given. I mean, you should be able to know how much your account will be charged if you don't withdraw from their ATM, if you withdraw money from a different ATM. And also you should be able to know how much they will charge you at the end of the month if you withdraw more than 10 times. Because your bank charges are defined by how you use that account. So those are some of the things that we need to consider. And sometimes we often spend money, every cent that we have, and then we don't leave money out for bank charges. And when money comes in, you'll find that your account goes to a minus. And when money comes in, it's going to take those bank charges, and you won't have enough money at the end of the day. So those are some of the things that we need to look at whenever we're opening an account. Um, we did talk about what you need to prioritize when you're setting up your budget. The first thing will need to be your needs, and the second thing will need to be your wants. We've put an example here so that we can take this issue of budgeting into practice. Now we have Mpo here as an example. She's a supervisor at a logistic company and she's earning 22,000 per month. She also receives a child maintenance of 500. So her take-home pay is including that 500 of child maintenance. Now her net salary is 20,500 after deductions. So she has identified her expenses, and she's currently spending more than she earns and surviving on a payday loan. You see, there are different types of loans now, but then Mpo is surviving on a payday loan. A payday loan, of course, it will be the loan wherein you will borrow money during the course of the month. But when you get paid, it's going to deduct what you have borrowed with interest. So the question is, can you help her to balance her budget and save at the same time? So if we look there, her salary is 20,500, and also a net salary is 20,500, and a child maintenance is 500. So in total, she has a salary of 21,000. So she has, and this is the way we should be putting our budget. So she has living expenses such as rents and lights and water, and there's food. You see, she does have money that is placed aside for takeouts, and she does have money that is placed aside for grocery, and there is money for taxi, and there is money for personal care, there is money for communications, which would be your cell phone contract, your airtime, and all that. There is money set aside for debt. There is money set aside for childcare, family tax, entertainment, insurance, and then there are irregular expenses such as doctor's fees. So the task here is to categorize and adjust this budget so that she can stop living or depending on a payday loan. All right, the first thing that she can do here is to cut back on takeouts, on a grocery and cosmetics and data. You see, she can stop prioritizing these things because she's now prioritizing personal care, she's prioritizing communications, things that she can live without. So she can cut back on these things and maybe put them below and prioritize things which matters. And also she can negotiate lower black tax with a brother, because she is also supporting. You see, there was, they say, family tax, money for brother at university. It's 1,500. Perhaps she can negotiate with a brother to cut back on the money that she's sending to her every month. And she can also adjust and switch from DSTV to Netflix. I mean, a lot of people, as we have seen on social media, a lot of people are now trying to diversify and adjust from DSTV to Netflix, of which some have an opinion that it's a much better way to save. So she can also look at that option. And on her insurances, she's paying about 1,800. Now, it's always important to hunt around before taking insurances. You need to shop around for cheaper insurances. So this is one of the options that she can do. You see, if she does all these things, at the end of the day, she has already saved 503. So there are a lot of things that she can adjust here, besides the ones that we have mentioned. You see, for example, she can, instead of getting takeout, she can choose to cook at home and save an additional 200 on takeout. And already she will be having around 7 or 3. Now, this is the very same task that I would like us to take whenever we get home. Go and adjust your budget. Go and see what are the things that you can do without, on your budget list. And also, when it comes to debt, maybe I should just make mention of this before I forget about it. You see, now that the repo rate was reduced, one of the things that you can do on your budget, um, you can go and check your installment will not be the same as it was before COVID-19 or before the repo rate was reduced. You'll find that you're saving some money on your car installment. So you can use that money to sort of save it for emergency fund, because if you don't have money for emergency, you will always be borrowing. I often say that at least from your net salary on your budget, you should be at least be able to save 10% of your net salary for emergency. Because an emergency will not give you a call to say, I'm coming tomorrow, you should be prepared. And whenever we come across an emergency, the first thing that we are going to do is to borrow. And when we are borrowing, we will be borrowing each and every time we come across that emergency, which would leave us with no salary at the end of the day. So you can do that and save more money on your emergency fund. So before you buy something, you should be able to ask yourself, can I afford this item? And most importantly, is it in my budget? Do I really need this item? Um, or is just a want that I can do without? Can I use less of this item? Is there a cheaper alternative? Can I get a better price elsewhere? If I borrow to buy it, how much is it going to cost me in total? Because borrowing something may sound like it's a simple task to do at the time. But when you look at the amount of money you will have paid at the end of the contract, you find that you will have paid a lot. And now on this slide, they're just showing the difference between an individual versus your household budget. Of course, in instances wherein you're staying alone, then you will do an individual budget. But if you are married or have a partner, a household budget can help you achieve your goals, um, and save money. So the first thing, if you're having that household income, or a household budget, you need to pull your income into one, add up all your household expenses, and categorize your expenses and adjust your budget. And lastly, monitor that budget. Um, just want to move on to this slide. So we were talking about having an emergency fund. Amongst the savings that you should have, there should be an emergency fund. Um, you know, I asked a certain group and I said to them, look, if your employer was to say you are not going to get a salary for the next 2 months, what would happen to you? And a lot of people came to realize that if I was to skip, or if my employer was to not pay me for the next 3 months or 2 months, then there would be a disaster. So you should be able to have at least a saving which will cover you for at least 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. Because this is another thing that COVID-19 taught us. We are living in uncertain times. And if you are not prepared for these times, you will find yourself in financial troubles. And as I'm speaking now, there are a lot of people who have taken loans because they didn't have an emergency fund specifically for COVID-19 already. They were not getting paid during the lockdown, and already they are facing financial difficulties, which could last for the next year, 2 or 3 years to come. And already what they wanted to achieve in life is already disrupted because they don't have an emergency fund. So we should always have enough that is saved up to cover our expenses in case something happens. And also you should have a goal-driven saving. For example, you should have money that is saved up for lobola, for a wedding, for a car deposit. And these are some of the stages in life that we come across unprepared for financially. Let me give you just an example. Unfortunately, the slide is on another presentation. There are different stages. The first stage would be birth. Then the second stage will be school, tertiary, first job, first car, first house, marriage, children, retirement, and the last stage will then be death. If you are unprepared for all these stages, you will have financial difficulties. I mean, if you are unprepared for the first stage, which is birth, there are expenses such as your pampers, all the things, the basic things that your child would need. Then if you don't have those, you find yourself in financial difficulties. But then if you don't put money aside also for your children, because the main aim of this session is also to cut the cycle of generational poverty. You see, if we don't invest money enough to cover the stages for our children as well, our children will have to go through the same struggle that we went through. For example, if you don't invest money for your child's education, your child will have financial difficulties. Maybe because now there is NSFAS, it will be much easier. But after tertiary, there comes a first job, wherein, like myself, I studied at the University of Venda, and my first job at Old Mutual was in Cape Town. So on your first job, if you don't have enough money, and at home they're saying they don't have money invested for you as well. So you will need to pay rent. And you know that when you're paying rent, they need a deposit as well. And when they need a deposit, there's also grocery, there's also transport expenses. There's a whole lot of things that you would need to be prepared for. Let's say maybe on your first job, they're only giving you 10,000. And out of 10,000, before they even pay you your first salary, you should be having 7,000 to cover all those expenses. And if you don't have that money, and if at home they're not giving you that money, you should get it somewhere through a loan, or you could borrow from someone. And already when you get your first salary, you have 7,000 that you are owing. And you are only left with 3,000. And you still have to pay expenses for the following month. Already at that stage, your financial circumstance is already disturbed. So for the coming month, you will have to be depending on loans in order to cover your expenses. And whenever you get to a stage wherein you have to buy a car, and I often tell people that this is why financial institutions will come up with things such as a balloon payment whenever you want to buy a car. You see, these things are caused because of how we handle our finances, or because we didn't have enough money saved up, or we were not prepared enough for these stages. The same applies to when you're buying a house. And the same will apply when you come to the stage of marriage. Now, I mean, if I don't have money saved up for lobola, then I will have to go and borrow money for lobola. And after lobola, we need our perfect wedding. Um, I will have to go to the bank and borrow more money again. And instead of starting a family with my wife with an investment of 150,000, we're starting a family with a debt of 150,000. And we won't have enough money also to invest for our children. Our children will have to go through the same route. And that is how the cycle of generational poverty starts. So you need to have a goal-driven saving for all these stages of life. And the last one will be your retirement saving. Stats SA released a report about 4 years ago saying that only 6% of people are able to retire comfortably. Only 6% of people. Now, when we talk about retiring comfortably, at retirement, you should be able to be earning your pension money should be able to give you an income which is 75% of your last paycheck. So if you are earning 10,000 now, for an example, at retirement, you should be earning 7,500. But only a few people are able to retire that way. And one of the reasons will be that whenever we retire, we have a lot of debts which are awaiting. We have a lot of projects which we didn't do while we were working, and we want to achieve everything with our pension money. So you need to have a retirement saving that will cover your living expenses when you retire. Because remember, whenever we retire, um, our our expenses don't retire. I mean, when you retire, your your electricity bill will still be awaiting for you. The grocery that you will have to buy at home will still be looking at you and saying, you need to still be paying those bills. So if you don't have enough money for those things, then it becomes a problem. Okay, now we're going to talk about setting goals. While you are still working, and I stress this um, phrase that while you are still working, because a lot of people want to achieve their goals um, through their pension money. But while you are still working, this is the best time to identify your short-term goals, your medium-term goals, and your long-term goals. And you need to set a deadline for each goal. You need to identify the main actions that you will need to take to achieve your goals. And also you need to monitor the progress towards your goal. I mean, if you have a goal to build a house, you won't build your house in a year. That will be your long-term goal. Spend those 3 to 5 years gathering all the materials that will be needed to, 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 to build your house. And if we're talking about maybe a medium-term goal, um, wherein you will have to save money for buying a furniture, couches, you want to buy couches, then it will take you some time to pile up some money. Maybe you can have a stock fail, which will give you enough money to buy those couches. Because unless we put our things or whatever we want to achieve into short, medium, and long-term goals, we'll find ourselves taking it through credit. I mean, you take couches which are costing 20,000, and they say, okay, you can pay 500 per month for 36 months. After 36 months, you find yourself that you could have bought 4 sets of couches or 3 sets of couches. So if we don't have these goals, then we will find ourselves um, um, taking debts to cover those goals. And maybe looking at this example for Mpo, a short-term goals um, up to a year, a short-term goal is to pay off a credit card balance of 5,500. Maybe she can pay more towards the debt. And I often advise that if you want to pay your debt faster, of course, we have a slide for it, but if you want to pay off your debt faster, go and list all your debts. Towards your debt, pay more. It's either you can pay 300 extra towards your your vehicle finance, or you can pay 200 extra um, towards your home loan. But at the end of the day, you'll find that you are able to finish your debt faster just by paying more. Because if you pay the normal installment, you are going to finish that debt as per the agreement that you sign. But if you put more money will have to finish, will finish off your interest first, and then you will be able to finish that debt faster. And the medium-term goal for Mpo for 1 to 3 years is to save for 20,000 for a deposit towards the apartment. And when you are taking a loan, could either be for a home loan or a car loan, it's always a good sign to the bank whenever you put in a deposit. Whenever you put in a deposit, it's always a good sign to them that you'll be able to be faithful towards the debt that they have to give you. The long-term goal for Mpo is to start a business. with a capital of 50,000. And she will save 50% of all her bonuses every year in order to reach that goal. In most cases, sometimes we do tell ourselves that this year's bonus, I'm going to take 50% of it and pay off my debts. And when the bonus comes, we'll find ourselves not fulfilling the goal that we have set. So it's important that you stick to your goals. And maybe another way to help you remember them, you can stick them in a wall or a bedroom, in your bedroom, or you can stick them in the fridge if maybe you are that open, or in your by your side in your mirror, so that every day when you look at the mirror, you can be reminded of what you want to achieve in life. This will help you so that when it comes time for you to fulfill that goal, then you won't have a problem. Because I'm telling you, if you don't have a goal that is set aside, especially to pay off your debt, a lot of things will emerge. Like the example I've just given. If you tell yourself that I'm going to pay off my debts using this year's bonus, when the time comes, if you don't have something to remind you of that every day, when that bonus comes, it will find a lot of loopholes that are waiting to be fulfilled through that bonus money. So it's important that we have something to remind us of what we want to achieve. The next chapter would be marriage and money. This is a very fascinating chapter. You need to be able to say, I can, before I do. And a lot of things when it comes to marriage contracts are evolving. If you watch the news, there is a petition, or the government is looking at the option of polyandry, wherein women will be having an option to marry as many husbands as they can. And just a few weeks ago, a legislation was passed to concerning customary marriages. Customary marriages now have equal rights. It's almost the same as in community of property. So a lot of things are changing, and towards the road to live your best life. This is one of the chapters that could hinder us from getting to that best life, because maybe we are innocent, but the partners that we are living with, or our spouses, sorry, have some secrets financially that they didn't disclose. Because if we're talking about the type of marriage such as in community of property, you know that what is yours is mine and what is mine is yours. So if I have 500,000, for example, it's no longer mine alone. I'm sharing it with my wife. The same will apply if I have a debt of 500,000. It's no longer mine alone. I'm sharing it with my wife. So these are some of the things that we need to consider before signing up or before choosing the type of marriage regime that we would want. A lot of people often ask me about a prenup. A prenup is not a marriage regime. A prenup is a marriage contract that we sign before signing a marriage regime. So this is a contract that you can draft with your attorney before signing the type of marriage. So if you are married in community of property currently and you want to sign a prenup, it's not done that way. You sign a prenup before you sign a marriage regime or a marriage contract. And also we have out of community of property, which has two types. Out of community of property, there's antenuptial contract with accrual, and there's antenuptial contract without accrual. Now, with accrual basically means that what you did before we signed is your matters. I mean, if you gained profits from your business before we signed or before we got married, that is yours. If you accumulated debts before we got into marriage, that is yours. But whatever we do after we are married, then we share that, whether it's profit or loss. But without accrual, antenuptial contract without accrual, what you gained and lost before and after marriage is yours. So what is yours is yours. What is mine is mine. And we have customary marriage, of which the most important factors that we should look at when it comes to customary marriage is the factors which are considered in order for a marriage to be eligible to be called a customary marriage. For example, according to a document which was shared by the Home Affairs, or according to the South African law that is related to the Marriage Act, especially Customary Marriage Act, it states that there should be a negotiation and there should be witnesses and also there should be a celebration. So if there is if we only do one out of three, and at the end of the day, or if one of the partner or spouse dies, or we divorce and we have to go to court, these are the three factors that they will have to look at. Maybe you will remember if you go and Google that double HP case that happened after double HP passed on. This was the customary marriage problem, because they did, or they thought they did some of the steps, but the wife, who is currently the wife, had noted everything, and I think she was well aware of what constitutes to a customary marriage. And the judge had to order her to be the wife of the deceased. And I often advise people that in order to avoid all that drama, you need to go to Home Affairs and register your customary marriage so that they will have a record that you are married customarily. So, but then now, if we are to separate or divorce, we all have equal rights according to the changes which were made just a few weeks ago. So the best way is to register um, your customary marriage. So those are some of the things that we need to consider before we get married. Now, if I can maybe take that information and link it to the stages that I was talking about earlier, wherein a child will move from birth, school, tertiary, first job, first car, first house, and then marriage. I mean, if I was not having money at this stage, your first job, and I had to struggle, I had to take loans in order to cover most of the things in my life. And even when it came time for Lobola, I had to take a loan for that. If I went through all that struggle and the wife that I want to marry didn't go through all that, I mean, she had a better life planned for her and she's coming with no debt, but we decide to get married in community of property, then my debts are no longer mine alone. We are now sharing those debts. And that is where conflicts start to happen. And those are some of the causes of divorce nowadays, because we don't disclose our finances. So you remember on the first few slides when we're talking about your finances with your spouse. These are the few things. At least now, I'm getting a lot of requests for bridal showers, and we do talk about these things, that before we even sign at Home Affairs, we need to come with our credit reports and disclose whatever we have or whatever we are coming with, so that we will have an open financial life. Now, we're running out of time. I'm just gonna mention a few things here, but most of the things we've already mentioned. Now, when we talk about charging down your debt, you need to be able to distinguish between what is a good debt and what is a bad debt. So if we're talking about a student loan, a mortgage, or a business loan, those are some of the things we can consider as a good debt. But when we talk about buying food on credit, borrowing money to pay another credit, taking buying a car that you cannot afford. And remember when you talk about buying a car, well, you could qualify to get that car, but the question is, can you afford it? That is why in most cases, when we do an affordability test when we're buying a car, they will ask you how much do you spend on food? How much do you spend on whatever? How much do you spend on entertainment? And then we tend to lie. We'll tell them that I spend 500 on food. Then because credit bureau will not be able to monitor how much you really spend on food, the salesperson will have to conclude that you can afford that car, of which in reality you don't. And if they give you that car, and remember, food is a need, of which you said you spend only 500, and in reality, you spend about 2,000. So you'll find that in reality, you cannot really afford that car. So that is why we're saying if you take luxury cars and holidays, or if you buy things that you cannot afford, it's a bad debt. We always need to look at what we can afford rather than what we can qualify. I mean, a pay slip, if you have a pay slip, I'm telling you, you can qualify for almost everything, provided you have a good credit score. But we need to look at what we can really afford. So that is the first step that you need to check whenever you consider between the which one is a good debt and which one is a bad debt. You need to make debt work for you. Don't work for your debt. And to do that, you only have to take on debt that you can afford, as was previously spoken. If you need to take on a debt, use debt to achieve your long-term goals, like buying a house. But also in this instance, I don't advise you to take a home loan to build a house in a rural area which won't have a return on investment. You need to buy that house in an urban area wherein you know that you're taking a 500,000 loan to build it, and you're going to get about 2 million when you resell that house. And you need to shop around for the best interest rates and terms. I advise that if you want to buy a car, don't go into different garages doing an application. There are factors which affects your credit score, and one of them is um, doing or regularly checking your credit score. You see, when the salesperson um, opens an applications for you, they're going to check your credit score. And if in one day your credit score is checked about 4 or 5 times, that is a negative factor towards your credit score. So we need to look out for that. But you can shop around for the best interest rates. People will sell um, their loans at different interest rates. So that we need that's what we need to look at. And the terms as well. Because sometimes we sign for things that we don't understand. We sign for contracts. Maybe we are excited that I'm getting a new car, but you didn't check that there's a balloon payment. You need to pay 70,000 at the end of paying. At the end of paying for 150,000 for the car, you need to pay for a balloon payment of 70,000. And when you realize about these things after you have signed an agreement, remember, when you've signed an agreement, it's done. It means that you understand all the things which were stipulated on that contract. So it's very much important that we ask the terms and conditions. Still on this one, a lot of times, whenever, let's say you're opening a clothing account, they sometimes offer a funeral policy without you being aware of it. Or sometimes you sign for it without them explaining in fully what it is. So you find that you don't know about that funeral policy on that, which is on that, or which is attached to that clothing account. So if you don't know about it, they're not going to come and say, they're not going to call your family members and ask if you are dead. Your family members will have to inquire about it when you pass on. And if you don't know about it, then your family members won't know about it. And you will just be paying it for nothing. So we need to check out for some of those things. Pay your credit card balance every month. And if you are in debt, get out of it quickly. I'm going to give you a formula which will show you how deep you are in debt and the kind of solution that you will need to take in order to tackle that problem. The formula is the total monthly debts that you have, the total debts that you pay for every month. Let's say, for example, out of your net salary, you are using 4,000 for debts only, not other expenses such as food and electricity, but debts only. So you say total debts every month divided by your net salary, multiply by 100. Total debts divided by your net salary, multiply by 100. So if you get an answer from 0 to 30%, it means that you are still in control of your finances. If you get an answer from 31 to 37%, you are heading towards danger. 38 to 49%, you are in a danger zone. Above 50%, in a medical term, we would say you are in ICU. So your debts are out of control. And if you are above 50%, then we can tell you about debt administration or debt review. You can go to any reputable financial institution and ask about the debt review. And if you are below 40% and considering that you have a good credit profile, if you can check on the screen, they're talking about your credit score. You can go to Google and type credit report or credit score. Everyone is eligible to get a free credit score once per year. Check your credit score. If you have a credit score from 0 to 486, you have a poor credit score. And your debt to income ratio would be in ICU in most cases. And 527 to 582, you are unfavorable. And this is the information that financial institutions will check in order to determine whether you qualify for the debt. And if you do qualify, how much interest are you supposed to earn to pay back on that loan? This is why you find that me and my colleague are driving the same car, we are earning the same salary, but we are paying different installments on the same car. Well, that he is paying 4,000 and I'm paying over 6,000 because of my credit score. So your credit score will determine the type or how much interest you're supposed to pay. Now, if you are on this 767 to 1,000, which is excellent, you can even be able to negotiate the kind of interest that they should give you. If they're saying they're selling the car at, let's say, 10% interest, you can say, no, I want it at 9% interest rate. Then you have that option because you have a good credit score. These are some of them companies wherein you can check your credit score. And like I said, you are entitled to one free credit report each and every year. So TransUnion, Experian, CompuScan, which is not mentioned here, those are some of the credit bureaus wherein you can check. I advise that you check all of them because you'll find that one of your debts is not appearing at TransUnion or it's appearing as non-payment, whereas in Experian it's appearing as paid or paid up. So you should check all of them so that you will have the full information. And if you find that in one of the bureaus, the information is not updated, you can simply call them and ask them to update the information. I think because of time, I have another session just after 12. I will leave these few minutes for questions. Katlego, thank you so much.
All right, no problem. Thank you so much, sir, for the presentation. Colleagues, if you have any questions, can you kindly post them in the comment section so that I can be able to read them out loud and we can have our presenter respond to those questions. Another thing that I would like to please plead with you, there's a form that I have posted and our presenter has also posted. Can you kindly fill in that register? For the purpose of our presenter, he needs it as well. Thank you. Colleagues, a better alternative, if you don't have the energy to type anything, you can raise your hand, we will unmute you and you can ask a question.
Maybe just to liberate colleagues. I often say that if you have a question, maybe you're afraid that colleagues would know or would be looking at your financial circumstance. You can always refer to your neighbor. I would say, my neighbor has this kind of challenge. How can I, or how can she solve it? You can always refer to anyone if you feel that everyone will be knowing your financial circumstance. But please let us ask questions, colleagues.
It seems like we are not getting any questions, so I would assume this was a very informative session. Should any of the colleagues require the presentation, you're more than welcome to send me an email and I can forward it to you. I'm going to post my email address in the comment section. I can see here there's a question on the register. There is option 1 and option 2. Please clarify.
Yeah, you can choose option 2. Option 2. Oh, I see there's a follow-up question there on why option. Okay, yes. So we do different, we have different modules. We have modules for communities, for employees, for people who are about to retire and those who have retired. So option 1 is for communities and option 2 is for this module that we were presenting today. So that is why you would have to choose option 2.
Alrighty. It seems that our session will have to come to an end.
Yes, thank you so much, colleagues, for the opportunity.
All right, thank you, sir. We really do appreciate your time and Old Mutual's time. Thank you so much, colleagues.